Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards here. Drew Pien here with Brandon Krikorian on a Friday afternoon. Brandon, how's it going?
Not great. I have strep throat, so
Oh, yeah.
I will say I feel better today, but I definitely didn't feel great the last couple of days.
a couple things have happened since we last recorded. Tuesday we're in the studio. Obviously, today we're on Zoom.
Yeah.
I guess I would say the biggest news probably is Odell Beckham Jr. getting cut. That's probably the biggest thing that's happened since we last recorded. First thoughts, what it means for the Browns.
I think it's a positive, right? He and like I saw the video, like the 10-minute video of him being open and stuff, and like for sure. I mean, look, he's open. He does get open. He still is a pretty good wide receiver. Now, see the player that he was, 4 or 5 years ago, definitely not. But there's also a lot of the blame could be on him. A lot of it could be on Baker. A lot of it could just be on another reason. But I think it was the right decision to do. We always knew he was a mess in the locker room. Even if you never heard it or didn't see it, you always knew it. And it always showed. And even though the players seemed to have his back, you just knew something was always wrong. It seemed like the coaching staff, at least Stefanski, just didn't like him. They told him to sit from practice the last 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. And I don't think Stefanski ever really liked him, to be honest. But I think it was the right decision. He just I think you could be at the same spot without him than if he was on your team. So I don't think it's a loss at all. And we'll see if they play better. Again, last year when he got injured, they played better. So maybe this year with all the stuff that's been going on, the injuries and them just not playing well, maybe they start to play better with him just not even being there anymore. I guess we'll see. But like I said, I think it was the right decision for them to cut him.
So, out of curiosity, were you a fan of the OBJ trade for the Browns when it first happened?
Um, at that time, you were still getting a top what 6 or 7 wide receiver at that time. He was coming off the ankle injury, but even still, he was still one of the better receivers in the league. You really didn't have to give up that much. You gave up an offensive lineman, a pick that turned into Jabril Peppers, and another pick. So you didn't really give up that much to get him. And for again a top 6 wide receiver at the time, it wasn't the wrong move. But you also have to look at his personality and also all the stuff that comes with him off the field, not even just his play on the field. And then even just his play on the field, he just hasn't been healthy enough to live up to any type of expectation you had for him. But I would say I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. I thought I was probably somewhere in the middle, thinking that, yeah, he's still one of the better wide receivers, so he can definitely make an impact. And again, at that point, the Browns were, 0-16 and 1-15. So I don't think it was the wrong move, but it clearly didn't work out the way they wanted it to.
Yeah, it was a first and a third along with Jabril Peppers.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I was a fan of it for the Giants at the time. Um, I guess I can't remember exactly what my stance was, but I was definitely of the opinion that while OBJ is really talented, he is a diva, and I think in Cleveland
Yeah.
he proved exactly that. Now, I do think cutting him was probably the right move. Ideally, obviously, you get it to work out if you're the Browns. It just doesn't seem like that was going to happen. Uh, Now, does this what do I think of the Browns now as far as Super Bowl contenders? I honestly think without Odell without I think you needed Odell at his peak to win a Super Bowl for the Browns. I think you needed him as a top 15 receiver to reach your ceiling. And honestly, without that, I'm not sure that I can say the Browns are Super Bowl contenders. I wasn't ever really a fan of them for being Super Bowl contenders, anyways. And now without Odell, I just, and especially the way this team's looked so far, I just don't trust this team to be a Super Bowl contender. So I'm not. I'm gonna say they're not. Now, where do I think Odell Beckham would fit? I think there's a few teams. I guess the first one is New England. I think he would fit New England. Now, what is he going to get on the open market in terms of money? I would assume wherever he goes, it's the rest of this year, probably relatively cheap money. I think there might be a few teams that are interested, but he'll go for probably close to nothing just the rest of this year on a kind of a prove it deal. I think he fits with a contending team that needs a wide receiver, but also has a winning culture. I think that's ultimately the best way to deal with divas, like in the NFL, or I guess really in general, is the best way to deal with somebody who has just an attitude is to put them in a culture that is, that knows what it is, a winning culture. So that's New England. I think Kansas City could probably benefit from that. Maybe New Orleans. Maybe. I mean, just pick your team that needs wide receiver. That's a contending team right now. Really, any of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, another team could be the Raiders. And now, I mean, the culture thing may not be there, but they need a wide receiver, obviously, with the Ruggs situation. So that could be another possibility. They said before the trade deadline, the Saints, they didn't have a deal, but they at least were discussing a deal. Probably the most progress towards a deal in Odell trade situation was with the Saints. So again, that's like you said, another possibility there. I could assume maybe the Patriots as well. We'll see. I mean, that's always been linked when he was with the Giants, that Odell to the Patriots. We'll see,
That
but
was with Brady though, so I think it's a little
yeah,
bit different now, right?
yeah. I think if Brady's there, like almost like an Antonio Brown situation, not to the same extent, but the same type of player. And then you have Brady there, so probably not, maybe not now, but we'll see. But again, what team does he go to? Will he change? I don't. Why would he change? I don't think there's a reason for him to change. I think he thinks that it's Baker's fault and that it's the team's fault, and that it's not his fault. And the last two stops he's been at, he thought it was Eli's fault and he thought it was Baker's fault. So why would he think that it's his fault for him being on a third team already, where he just got cut after he's made, he had whatever his contract was, one of the highest paid receivers in the league, and he's getting cut. So I think he does have to look at himself and be like, it is my fault, but I just don't think he's going to do that. So whatever team he goes to next, I think it's going to be the same situation. Maybe not this year, maybe because it's, you only have half a season left or whatever, but whatever team he eventually ends up on, that he'll be there at least for a couple of years. It's just gonna be the same story over again. And again, he's 29 years old. He's had a couple injuries. He's not the same player he was. He just may never be that type of player ever again. He may be a good receiver, but I don't think he's ever going to be anywhere close to an elite receiver for the rest of his career. I don't think he's ever going to reach that again.
Yeah, I think he can be a top 20 receiver.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, it's not even that good though, to be honest.
no, it's not amazing. It's not what he could have been had he not kind of gone off the rails there in the middle of his prime. But he's still an incredibly talented receiver with pretty good speed. Obviously can make some pretty insane catches, create separation, and if defenses don't have to game plan for him, if you're not double teaming him, if you're not always dedicating a safety over the top for him, then I think he can get open and have a pretty good time at getting open. And then obviously if you do have to game plan around him, if you are double teaming him and everything, then great, because that only makes more room for your other receivers. So if the Patriots were to sign Odell, and this is something I'll probably talk about in my Patriots episode, but if the Patriots were to sign Odell, I think I'd be happy about it. Now, with that being said, if the Patriots were to not sign Odell, I would also be fine with that. Honestly, I think that I trust Bill on this one. And I know that's kind of tough because trusting Bill has not been so great lately with the draft and even some other, diva quote-unquote acquisitions. But I think I trust Bill on this one. So I guess that's kind of what I'd go with that. I would trust, like, if the Chiefs were to sign Odell, I would honestly trust the Chiefs could kind of, at least for the rest of this year, get Odell to be in a winning mindset and just kind of fall into line and not be, a distraction in the locker room. So
But
yeah.
I think the one thing that's concerning is that with the Browns, one, I think that was a perfect team for him because they're the leading rushers in the NFL the last, like 2 or 3 years or whatever. So they're always going to have a safety in. They're always going to stack the box against the Browns. So you're most likely always going to have single coverage. You're never really going to have a safety helping on Odell. So you're kind of in a perfect situation there. Now, again, you're running the ball more than throwing it, but when you do throw it, as long as you're open, and again, I know the video and everything, but like you should be able to put up numbers, and he just never did that. I mean, I don't even know what his best game with the Browns was. It was probably against the Cowboys last year when he had a really good game, but even still, it wasn't like that amazing of a game. And then also Jarvis Landry was there, so if he's in a locker room with his best friend and he still can't cooperate and be on his best behavior or whatever, then how is he going to go to another team and then somehow just like change his whole personality around and then be a whole team player and not argue and not get upset about things? I always saw him when he was playing with the Giants, and I knew he was really good, but I just never liked him as a player, and it just shows that when that talent kind of goes away a little bit, the personality is still there, and it shows that without the talent, he really isn't. He's a good player. He's just not an insane player like he showed that he was the first couple years in his career.
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, I agree with like the whole people are typically stacking the box against the Browns, and for the most part, defenses aren't having their main game plan be around Odell, but it just was a bad situation because Odell did not ever want to be there pretty much. Never got it to gel with Baker. And I just think he was a distraction in the locker room. And ultimately, all those things add up, and it just creates a distracted environment where if he demands the ball too much, sometimes it's hard to throw to him. So I think he'll do better in a better environment. Now, I just want to, if he gets to that environment, I'll trust him. If not, if he goes to some honestly, if he goes to the Raiders, I would not be happy for the Raiders. I don't think that'd be a good move for the Raiders. I don't think their locker room is necessarily any better than the Browns' locker room. So I think you can kind of get a similar environment. But if you were able to go to like the Chiefs, Patriots, the Saints, I think honestly he could do fine there. But I guess that's
But
Odell unless you.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. Isn't that more on Odell than the locker room? Because we saw with the Browns last year, like when he gets injured and he's not there, they play a lot better and it seems like everyone's together. And then as soon as he comes back, all these problems start coming up again. So I think that's more on Odell than what locker room he's in. I feel like if you were to go to the Patriots or the Saints or the Chiefs, I mean, I think for sure he would probably limit it a little bit, but I think there would be problems that would arise at some point. Maybe again, maybe not this season because there's only 8, 7 games left. He's not going to get signed until after the games this weekend. So, we'll see. But I think it's more on him as just as a person and as a player. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't really care for him anyways. So, but I guess if he goes to the Patriots, like you said, I guess you'd be happy. But would you want him long term? Like maybe not long term, but would you want him for like 2, 3 years?
Probably not. The answer is probably not. But if I was a winning team, winning culture, I should say, I would take Odell for the rest of this year, no doubt.
Yeah,
If we're
yeah,
talking on no money, like something
yeah.
close to no money just for the rest of this year, I think he would be able to be a positive, you know, asset. But yeah, long term, I would say probably not, unless like he really showed me something this year to like make me believe that he would not be a diva going forward.
Yeah, and I mean the Browns. I mean for them to cut him now. I mean if they waited till let's say they just I don't know he'd rather play the rest of the season or they just sat him whatever. Um, if they were to cut him after June, they'd save. I don't know the exact money that it is, but they'd save a ton of money on his contract. Then they could just cut him and whatever. But with them cutting him now, it's a lot of dead money on their cap. So it just shows that he just didn't work there, obviously, and he just needed to be gone. So, um, yeah, I don't know. It's just like when I saw on Instagram this morning, like that it was official that he was released. Like everyone's just like, oh, thank God, like he could finally go somewhere else that he could be amazing again. I just think people are kind of stuck in the past and they don't realize that he's just not that type of player anymore. He's just not. He's a good player. Like I said, he's good, but he's just never going to be a great player again. I can never see him being a great player. And it's crazy because he's only 29 years old. It's his birthday today. So it's crazy that he's still pretty young for a wide receiver. But I just never see him. I never see him being anywhere close to the player that he was in 2015, 16, and then even the early part of 2017.
Yeah, So I guess that's it for OBJ. We can get into the World Series. So
Yeah.
obviously the Braves are the World Series champions. Uh, First thoughts, first reactions. I guess my first reactions are one. I guess a pretty good MLB year, coming off of what was the COVID year, which was the 60 games, and then the playoffs. It was nice to kind of get back into the normal, normal whatever, normal swing of things or whatever. But pretty great MLB year. Surprising playoffs. We had both pretty much the entire playoffs said it's either the Dodgers and their only really their biggest scare is going to be the wild card game, and then whoever wins that Dodgers Giants series is both of our picks for the World Series, and the Dodgers ended up winning, and then they lose to the Braves, and the Braves go on to win the World Series against the Astros. Yeah, so I guess from the beginning of the year we were it was supposed to be Dodgers Yankees. That was the favorite for the World Series. Ended up being
Yep.
Braves Astros. So pretty surprising. I guess the Astros not nearly as much as the Braves. The Braves were definitely surprising. Fought through a lot of adversity to get there as well. So
Yeah, I mean, like before the season started, if you were to say it was the Braves and Astros, I don't think people would be surprised. But if you were to go to the All-Star break and say Braves Astros, then I think everyone would probably disagree with you or just be really surprised because at that point the Braves are under 500. The Astros are they're still one of the better teams, but you're probably looking at other teams that you would think that would just beat them. So yeah, it definitely for sure surprising and. Yeah, for the Braves to win Game Six. I mean, we both had the Astros winning Game Six in our last episode, and the game was over in the third inning. Once Soler hit that home run, the game was over. The Astros put up no fight. Very surprising. It just seemed like because it seems like this is the last year for this team because Correa is a free agent, and it doesn't seem like they're going to sign him again. And then they already lost Springer. Obviously, they lost Cole, Verlander, and Tommy John. He's probably coming back for next year, but we'll see how good he is when he's 40 years old, 41 years old. So their team is probably done as World Series contention teams. Now, I guess we don't know. They fought the last 2 years. Didn't seem like they'd be in the World Series, but they made Game 7 ALCS last year. Then obviously the World Series this year, but I'd be very surprised if Correa leaves and they're still a World Series team. But to put up no fight like that, and again, like I said, probably your last chance of being in a World Series for at least a little while, just surprising. They seem like they were just dead the entire game. But you got to give credit to the Braves. I mean, they got hot at the right time, and that's really all that matters in the playoffs is when you get hot. And it could be a team that, like them, they 88 wins, or it could be the Dodgers who had 100 and what 5 wins, 106 wins. So you just don't know, and that's the good thing about baseball is that in the NBA you almost know it's going to be one of the top, two seeds, or if it's a lower seed, it's just a team that had injuries, like one of those situations. In the NFL, it's most likely going to be the team with the bye or like one of the top teams that maybe just didn't have a better record than one of the best teams. So it's not the case in the MLB, and I think that's what makes it great. So yeah, I thought it was a really good World Series, though. I mean, there wasn't any classic games, but I thought it was a decent World Series, I'd say.
yeah, it was good. It wasn't bad, which is always good.
Yeah.
Was it an all timer? Probably not. It's not. It's not a World Series that in 10 years I'm gonna look back on and say that was a classic World Series. There's a good chance that I'm not even gonna think about it unless somebody specifically brings that World Series up.
Yeah.
But I mean, regardless, I think it was a good World Series, a solid year. Any way too early World Series 2022 predictions or thoughts?
Uh, yeah, I think I saw basically as soon as the game ended, I think they had the Dodgers as number one on that list. I don't know where the Braves were, but I think Dodgers were one. I think the Rays were there, the Yankees were there as well. Um, I think you have to go with the Dodgers though. It's just hard not to. We'll see what if they bring back Scherzer, if they bring back Seager, we'll see about those guys. But even let's say they don't even bring back either of them, they're still suited enough to easily be the best team in the MLB as well. So it's hard not to go with the Dodgers right now.
Yeah, it says the Dodgers are plus 500, Astros plus 700, Braves plus 900, Yankees plus 1,000, White Sox 1,200, Rays 1,200. Then you start getting,
That Astros one's gonna fall down.
as
But
in
the
like,
it's good.
yeah,
I mean, they're gonna be like worse odds just
yeah,
because I just see Correa leaving in my mind. He's gonna get like $300 million, and they just don't have the money to pay him. But yeah, the other team again, the Braves could easily be back. I mean, they get Acuna back next year. They get Soroka back next year. I mean, those are two guys that played. One guy didn't pitch an inning, and then one guy played half a season, and he's probably the best. He's probably the best player in the NL. So, if you think about it like that, it's kind of crazy to think that yeah, they did win the World Series, and they probably do have a good shot at getting back there next year.
yeah. I think right now, if you made me pick my World Series matchup,
The American League is tough because like the
I think
Yankees,
I,
like it's hard to pick the Yankees.
I think I go Dodgers Yankees right now. I think those are, I mean, technically the Yankees are not the favorite right now, at least according to Fox, but I think they will be in short time. I agree with you. I think the Astros odds will fall eventually.
Yeah.
So I would go Dodgers Yankees, and I think I would probably pick Dodgers, but we'll have to see what the offseason, what happens in the offseason. So I'm excited for that. The Diamondbacks have are tied for the worst odds. The Rangers, Orioles, and Diamondbacks are all plus 15,000.
Yeah. As far as the
So
Pirates aren't there.
Pirates are plus 10,000. Cubs also there 10,000.
Yeah.
Nationals plus 6,000. Angels plus 4,000.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's crazy that they're plus 4,000, but yeah. Um, but we already have a couple free agents already, so we'll see. Yeah, like you said, we'll see what happens in the offseason. I think it's gonna be a pretty decent offseason. There's a couple of big free agents. So we'll see. I mean, we'll probably do something about that when free agencies. It's not for another like a week or 2 weeks or something like that when it really starts to pick up.
I mean,
Assuming it doesn't drag along.
realistically, it's not for like another 4 months, but you know.
Well, no, the free agencies technically free agencies open.
I know. It just takes a while.
Well, yeah, some years it does, but also some years like the Rendon that year was at 20 after 2019. That all happened in December, I think. So there's times where it can happen early, but there also are times where the Harper Machado free agency that was February when they got signed. So yeah, it could take that long, but I'd be surprised. Well, actually, a lockout's probably going to happen. So we'll actually see what happens with the free agency because there may not even really technically be a free agency because if there's a lockout, then you can't sign people. So
Yeah, we'll see.
that may be an option as well. So
So week 9 of the NFL season. We'll just get into it. We already talked about week 8. If you want to hear anything that we had to say on week 8, some other NBA stuff, some other MLB stuff, feel free to check out our previous episode. I will leave the link in the description for that. But week 9, we'll just get into our predictions right now. I think we talked about a record last episode, but I'll just restate both of our records again. Brandon is 25-14-1 against the spread, and I am 21-17-2 against the spread. So right now we're both above 500. I'm not sure if we had bet $10 on every single one of these games or something, or $1 or $5 or whatever it happened to be. I don't know if I would be in the green. I think I'd probably be slightly in the green, and you'd definitely be making a solid amount of money. Me, I don't know. I'm only 4 games above 500, so I probably would barely be in the green. But yeah, so we'll just get into
want me
week
to
9.
start?
Uh, I'll start. Yeah, we have a couple of the same games. This is a week I'm not confident in at all.
Really?
I tried to think of some games earlier today, and I was just looking down the list, and like I was like, honestly, there's some games that I kind of like, but I don't have much more confidence in than like a coin flip, which is what which is what a one-on-one game is. It's a coin flip. Um, I'll start with Patriots at Panthers. Patriots are 3.5 point favorites on the road, and I'm taking New England. I do think New England is a better team. I think they have right now the more consistent play at quarterback. I think if McCaffrey does not play, they probably have the better running back in Damian Harris. If McCaffrey does play, obviously McCaffrey's way better. I think the Patriots probably have the more consistent offense, especially without McCaffrey. And defensively, I think the Patriots can be the better defense. I think the Panthers could also be the better defense on that day. But the Patriots have the better coach. They have the more consistent offense. They typically make less mistakes, and they're more consistent, and they're definitely more consistent as of late. So I think the Patriots are the better team. The only reason I'm kind of scared about it is because Stephon Gilmore is on this team. Gilmore played his first game for the Panthers last week and had an interception. Obviously, the Patriots traded Stephon Gilmore to the Panthers for essentially nothing. And we could use a cornerback right now for sure. We could use a cornerback like Stephon Gilmore on this team right now. It just wasn't going to work out. It was pretty much, we kind of almost had to trade him, essentially. But I think that's the reason to be scared of taking the Patriots is Stephon Gilmore has 2 picks or something, or just plays like his depoy potential, has his depoy type game, and the Panthers, Darnold plays a mistake-free game, and the Panthers are able to win that way. I think that's realistic, but I'll go with the Patriots because I do think in general they're the more consistent team and the better team.
Yeah, my first game is also that one as well. I just looked it up. McCaffrey, they said if he does play, he's on a limited snap count, so that works in favor of going with the Patriots. Anyways, I'm going with the Patriots. If I didn't say it before, but yeah, the same things that you said. I mean, they're the better team, the better defense. And even though the Panthers had the stats early, they're not that good of a defense, to be honest. It was just the opponents that they were playing. We'll see what Gilmore does. I think did he play last week? I think he played last week against the Falcons.
Yeah, he played last week, and I think he had the Yeah, I think he had the game-sealing interception.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we'll see how he plays. We'll see if maybe there's some revenge in there, obviously. But even still, 3.5. Like you said, the Patriots are the better team. They could have a better record than what they have right now for sure. If you look at their games and go through the history of them. And yeah, I just expect Darnold to make mistakes, and I expect Mac not to make mistakes. And like you said, Belichick first rule. Even though I like Matt Rule a lot, I have more trust in Belichick and ways to manipulate Darnold. He's always had success against Darnold. That's also another factor as well. So yeah, 3.5 for New England. That's what I'm taking.
They could definitely have a better record. Also, keep in mind that 3 of their wins so far this year, 2 of them have been against the Jets, and 1 of them have been against the Texans.
Yeah.
My next game, though, it's another one of the same games. Actually, my line is slightly different than yours. I'll just go to your line. Chargers at Eagles. The Chargers are 2-point favorites on the road.
Yeah.
And I'm going with the Chargers. This is a game that I'm, again, like, on paper, the Chargers are the better team. They're probably the better coach team. They have for sure the better quarterback. Really, they have everything going for them on paper, but obviously they're going on the road to Philadelphia. They're coming off what was kind of a scary loss to the Patriots because it may seem like teams are starting to figure out the Chargers, just in that their run defense is so bad that if you just stick to running the ball, that you can realistically score and milk a lot of time off this clock. It may even seem like teams are starting to not necessarily figure out Justin Herbert. I kind of don't like the phrase figure out, but get a solid game plan to at least kind of make him go past the first read and not give him things in the middle of the field. And if you can do that, then you can have a pretty good time against Herbert. And if the Eagles can do that, I think the Eagles can win this game. But on paper, the Chargers are just so much better on paper, in my opinion, that this was a game that, in a week that I'm not confident in, this is a game that I'm going to take. So I'm going to take the Chargers to win by more than 2 on the road.
Yeah, my second game is the same one. I took the Chargers as well. I was surprised when I saw this line, and I know the Chargers haven't played great the last 2 weeks. I guess 3 weeks, one being a bye week, but it just they're just a much better team than the Eagles, and I know the Eagles just killed the Lions, but again, it's the Lions. They're they haven't won for a reason. The Eagles have for sure looked better than I thought they would, but they're still not that good of a team to be honest. They're still going to finish with 5 or 6 wins. I think they're at 3 right now. So it's not I'm just kind of surprised by this, and I know maybe LA going to Philadelphia, that maybe could play a factor in it. Maybe it's cold or outside, obviously we'll see how Herbert plays in that type of environment. But even still, I'm not super worried about it. -2 is not that much to cover. Also, and like you said, the run defense is a huge concern for the Chargers, but the Eagles really don't have a running back who runs the ball. They have Hurts who runs the ball, but I can't even blame that on your run defense if the quarterback is scrambling and then making plays with his legs. I mean, what can your run defense do against that? It's more just reaction and making your instincts making a play against that. So as long as they can contain them just a little bit, and they're not getting gashed on the ground, I think they'll be fine. They'll probably call some turnovers as well. Hurts, has that tendency to throw picks or just make stupid plays. So I think they bounce back in this game, and yeah, they win by more than 2 points.
My next game, I typically don't take games with big spreads. Last year, this year I have not really typically. Last week I did. This week I'm as well. Bills at Jaguars. Bills are 14-point favorites. And I'm taking Buffalo. Honestly, last week kind of just made me think that this week they can do the same thing, which is they could literally play an ugly game for the first 3 quarters, but they're just way better of a team than the Jaguars, and the Jaguars are probably one of the worst teams in the league, probably bottom 4 or 5 at the very least. So, yeah, I think the Bills win by more than 14. I just think the Bills are a pretty dominant team offensively, and they'll be able to capitalize on some mistakes by Lawrence and just poor coaching by Meyer. So,
Yeah, that was a game I looked at. I went with the Bills last week when they had the big spread against the Dolphins. It seems like they played the Dolphins with a big spread. They played the Texans with a big spread. They now play the Jags with a big spread. It seems like they're playing like the worst teams in the league so far in the season, which is kind of weird because they obviously would have had a first place schedule. But that was another game I looked at. But for my third game, I'm going with Texans at Dolphins. Texans, it's +6.5 for the Texans. That's what I took because Tyrod Taylor is starting this game. At least that's what they said. So I'm hoping that stays true, that something doesn't come up with a setback or anything. But we saw how they played when he was starting the first couple games of the season before he did get injured. Obviously, they won their first game with him playing. And I think they're just a better offense with him. Now, do I think they're like a good team with him? No, obviously not. They're still a bad team. But I think he's more of a professional quarterback for sure. He's not going to make the dumb mistake. He could run with his legs as well. He's going to lead them down the field for points. And against this Dolphins team, they're a bad team as well. They may be as bad as you. So I think this is a game of two bad teams, and I trust Tyrod Taylor more than I do Tua. So again, +6.5. I mean, they could win the game or they could just lose the game by less than a touchdown. So I think for sure, I think this is an easy pick in my opinion. I was very surprised to see this at +6.5. And as long as Tyrod plays, which, like I said, I saw that he was, I think this is easy. I think it's an easy one.
yeah, I see where you're coming from. The reason I did not touch that game was because honestly, those teams are just so bad that like
Yeah.
anything can happen. My next game, I am going with Vikings at Ravens. Baltimore is 5.5 point favorites, and I'm going to go with Baltimore. To me, Baltimore's the better team, and the Vikings loss that they had to the Cowboys last week, prime time loss. Now, there's either two things that can happen, and they can either bounce back from it, or they can either kind of just fold. And I think they're probably. I don't think necessarily either of those will happen. I still think they're going to be a pretty competitive team, and they're still going to compete for a wild card spot. But I think that's just a huge, really bad loss to have. You get to play the Cowboys with Cooper Rush as the quarterback. He was a game time decision. I think that's a game you kind of had to have, and I think the morale is down a little bit, and I think the Ravens are just also just the better team, an insane running team. This is a game I'm not really too confident in, but the Ravens are the better team, and they should win by more than 5.5. They should win by a touchdown.
Yeah, this one I wanted to stay away from because, like you said, the Vikings, they could either bounce back amazingly or they could just, stay down where they are and then just get killed by the Ravens. But there's you just don't know what's going to happen with them. They're so inconsistent. I mean, there's some nights where their offense looks like top five, and then there's last Sunday night where they scored 16 points. So I just wanted to stay away from that one. But for my next game, I'm going Falcons at Saints. I have Falcons plus 6.5. Again, that's what I took. Falcons plus 6.5. Obviously, no Winston. Now they'll have Taysom Hill, but the bad thing about the Falcons is their pass defense, and of course. With Taysom Hill, you're not really have to worry about the pass defense that much. You're more worrying about the run game with Kamara, now Ingram, who they obviously got back, obviously Hill. So as long as they could focus in on the run game, just not get beat deep at all. Because again, they're probably gonna do some play action or something with Hill and probably throw a deep ball at some point. As long as you could limit that and just focus entirely on the run game, I think you could stay with them. I think the Falcons can for sure put up points. Now, obviously Ridley's not playing, but you still have Pitts. He's a monster. You still have other weapons on your offense, and it's not like the Falcons are favored. Where usually I take them, they're favored, and then they blow it. All you got to do is either just win the game or just lose by six or less. I think they could do that. They're always the team that gets killed on the other side of it. I think they could do it this week. I always seem to go with the Falcons every single week, and it usually doesn't work out. But I'm assuming it's going to work out this week. I feel pretty good about this game.
Yeah, I think that was a game that was a game I looked at too. I would feel confident. I feel confident in the Falcons too to cover that, but yeah, just the fact that they're the Falcons and
Yeah,
the
it's the Falcons.
Saints. The Saints are a really well coached team, and I think they can win by a solid amount, even without Winston. But yeah, that's a game that if I were to pick, I would pick the Falcons. My final game, we both took this game this week. Cardinals at Niners. Niners are 2.5 point favorites. And I'm going to go with San Francisco. I was kind of surprised. I had to double take when I saw this line. I was like, really? The Niners are 2.5 point favorites?
Yeah.
Because this is a game that I was going in and I was wanting to pick. And this was a game that I was anticipating the Cardinals to be maybe 1.5 point favorites or something like that. Obviously not the case, and I was going to pick the Niners, and I was going to pick them to win outright. I'm still going to obviously pick the Niners to win outright. I think they win by a field goal or maybe 4 or 5 points, and that's obviously more than 2.5. I think the Cardinals are a really good team for sure, better than you and I both thought they would be. Even though you and I thought they would still be a really competitive team, nobody
Yeah.
thought they'd be 7-0 to start the year. They're a good team. But this is a game that the Cardinals only managed to win 17-10 with Trey Lance, and this Niners team is now more healthy. Obviously, we're a few weeks deeper into the season now, so more practice. Just a lot of like the inconsistencies of the game, and a lot of the variables are kind of thrown out a little bit as we're kind of getting deeper into the year. We're now in November. Teams are starting to hit their stride. And this is kind of last year where we saw the Cardinals kind of start to fall off a little bit. We started to see some more inconsistent play from Murray. We started to see some of the more coaching errors and what made people think of him as an inconsistent head coach and a guy that this year was his year on the hot seat. And if the Cardinals didn't do well this year, that he would be fired. Obviously, he's not going to be fired unless some crazy things happen at the end of this year. But I do think the Niners, although I'm not a huge Kyle Shanahan fan, I still do think he's the better head coach in this matchup. And I think the Niners are probably I think they're the more proven team historically. Obviously, this year the Cardinals have been better. But if we get a matchup similar to the last matchup, which I don't think it'll be too similar, but I think with the Niners being more healthy, I think you'll see the Niners pull out this victory because they're not only more desperate, but I mean, yeah, they're just Kyle Shanahan could legitimately be fired after this year. And I know that's kind of maybe a little bit of a hot take, but he really hasn't done much other than the Super Bowl year. He really has not done much at all. He's not going to get fired because he had just a big role to play with the Trey Lance draft pick. But if he wasn't so tied to Trey Lance, there would be legitimate talks for him getting fired if they were to not make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if I heard someone say it or a story, but like, they're talking about Shanahan now. On the outside, yeah, I mean, he is a really good coach, but like if you really look at what he's done, besides that 1 year, they really haven't done much. A lot of the players they drafted haven't really turned out. Free agents they've got, trades they've made, they really haven't done much on that side. So I do agree with that. Now, would he get fired? Probably not because of the Lance pick. You probably have to give him at least another year, but for sure, I think yeah, like next year, that's going to be his year where they'll probably finish somewhere around 500 this year. I think we both agree on that. But next year, they probably have to rather win that division or at least make the playoffs with like a 12-5 record or something.
If they don't make the playoffs this year and they go out next year and finish 8-9 or 7-10, like
Yeah,
yeah, I think there's a legitimate argument to get rid of him, especially if Lance comes in next year and looks garbage.
yeah,
There's 100% an argument to get rid of him.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so my last game is also that game. Yeah, I had the same exact reaction as you when I saw that game. I was very surprised that it was in favor of the Niners, especially by 2.5. I know they're at home, and obviously that plays a little bit of a factor in it, but the Cardinals, they're the better team, I would say. I think they have more firepower. Now, yeah, I do like the Niners, but I think the Cardinals have more firepower. Do I even now? 2.5. Obviously, they could still lose the game, and I could still cover it. And I don't even know if the Cardinals will win this game because I think they already beat them once, and that was without Garoppolo. So we'll see how they play when Garoppolo plays in this game. Maybe that plays a little bit of a difference than Lance, who obviously first start he was honestly terrible in that game. So that could for sure play a difference in it. But yeah, just for the Cardinals not to be favored, at least be it like a I don't know, just something like something closer to even like a pick 'em or anything. Like to be plus 2.5, I thought that was crazy. I thought it was a must take in my opinion. Um, and yeah, like I said, it was just a must take as soon as I saw it. So I was very surprised, but I'm happy because again, I think they do have a good shot at winning this game, and them being plus 2.5. Obviously, like I said, they could still lose this game and get still cover.
Yeah, this was a game that before looking at the lines, I agree with you. I thought the Cardinals were probably going to be like 2 point favorites, one and a
Yeah,
half, maybe even a pick 'em or something like that. And I was going to be
and
picking the Niners. So I kind of have to just take the bad line and take the Niners because I do think the Niners are going to win this game.
yeah.
Obviously, they could win by less than 2.5, but I'm not. I don't want to. Yeah, I think the Niners will win by a field goal. So
Yeah, and especially with Niners played last Sunday, then the Cardinals played last Thursday, so it kind of an extra couple days of rest. You'd even think maybe that would play somewhat of a factor too in that line. But yeah, I don't know. They went with that line. Like I said, surprising. But one more quick thing about our picks, and I don't know if you thought this, obviously with the news last couple days, and then maybe seeing the lines when we were doing the games today, but the Packers Chiefs game, did you look at it and did you want to take the Chiefs? Because we're both out on taking the Chiefs, but did you want to take the Chiefs? Because I had probably like a 20% feeling of taking the Chiefs, but I decided not to.
no, I was actually debating taking the Packers in that game.
Really?
Packers are 7 point underdogs. Obviously, Jordan Love is playing this game. Uh, Aaron Rodgers, the whole COVID thing, he's out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was debating taking the Packers because the whole surprise element. Now, obviously, Love could come out and be awful, but he could also come out and be just completely different than what we've seen from Rodgers. Obviously, Rodgers is probably a top three arm talent in the league right now, and probably top three all time as well. So you kind of just have to prepare for everything that Aaron Rodgers can do, which obviously we all know what he can do. But we can't really prepare for Jordan Love. We know he's fast. We know he has a high potential. But we really just don't know too much about him. And that's kind of why I was debating taking the Packers. But at the same time, that's also a reason to not take the Packers is because he could come out and just not be very good. So yeah, I was debating taking the Packers because 7 points is a lot, and I do think the Packers without Aaron Rodgers are still a better team than the Giants.
The Chiefs.
No,
Oh,
than
you
the
mean the?
Giants. The
Oh, yeah.
Giants
Oh, okay,
because the
okay.
Chiefs had obviously beat the Giants by 3,
Yeah,
and I think the the Packers with Love are a better team than the Giants team.
Okay. Yeah.
Now that's a guess because we have not seen Love at all. But
Yeah, and that's the reason why I was looking Chiefs. Again, there's got to be look, are they ever gonna be the talent or team that they were the last couple years? Even if the record doesn't show it, like will they be that? I don't know. But at some point they have to break out at some point, right? Like it just they are too talented to not have like a crazy game, go on a streak, do something. It just yeah, I feel like it has to happen at some point. And like I said, we're both out. You've been out. I'm now out. But this has to be the biggest break of all time for them because if Rodgers is playing this game, I think they're losing that game for sure. So for him not to be playing, they have to win this game, and not even just win this game. They have to like dominate them, in my opinion, to like prove to themselves that yeah, they still have a chance at maybe reaching a Super Bowl this year. Now, will they? Probably not, but again, they could get hot. Mahomes could play a lot better. The defense could step up. Again, maybe a game like this where Love's making mistakes, they can get turnovers and just get more energy and momentum on their side for the rest of the season. So I kind of look at the game that way. But again, I'm out, so I wasn't going to take him.
yeah, that's fair. But I think that's pretty much it for our predictions. We'll see. We took 2 games the same. Well, we took 3 of the same games. 2 of them we picked the same team. Obviously, the Sunday night game, we picked different teams. So I have some potential to catch by. I do technically not have potential to fully catch up this week. If everything goes wrong for you and everything goes right for me, I would still be 1 game back, I'm pretty sure. Or 1 win back on you, at least. I'd be 1 win behind. So
Yeah.
so I guess that means something. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not confident in this week compared to a lot of the past weeks. Definitely the past couple weeks, I was more confident in this week. I'd probably have to go back a solid amount to a week that I wasn't confident in. Probably back to maybe week 4. I don't
I
know,
actually
maybe week
feel
3.
Yeah, I actually feel really confident this week. Like I said, last week I didn't feel confident in. Or really like the last was it 2 weeks ago? I think it was last week that I didn't feel confident in, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I don't know. But this week I do feel confident. I fully expect to go 4-1.
It
I
was week
think
7. It was 2 weeks ago that you did
2 weeks
not.
ago,
It was
yeah, I
that
went
was the
two
week
and
where
three.
yeah.
Yeah, I said if I go 2-3, I'll be lucky, and I went 2-3, which I was lucky about. But yeah, I fully expect to go 4-1. I think the only game that could maybe hurt me could probably the Falcons Saints game or maybe the Texans Dolphins game. It's one of those 2 games that's going to hurt me just because it's 2 bad teams that you're betting on can cover a spread. So that's obviously what can happen when you pick bad teams. They probably won't cover the spread. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. We talked
Yeah.
World Series. We talked OBJ. We talked Week 9. We'll have to see how Week 9 plays out. I'm pretty excited for it. Some pretty good games overall this week. Obviously,
And also,
yeah,
well, also just the trade deadline because we recorded it when it was happening, but we didn't finish till after we finished before it was done.
yeah,
Nothing happened. There was not even a trade that happened.
yeah, nothing. I think what was the biggest trade? Like Melvin Ingram to the Chiefs? I don't know.
That or like Von Miller, which wasn't even technically trade deadline day. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well that's it. We'll be back probably Sunday night, maybe Monday or Tuesday around then, with some Week 9 recap. Feel free to check out the Clips channel. Feel free to check out our episode on Tuesday, which was kind of some Week 8 recap. If you didn't check that out, feel free to check it out. Talked some stuff there. So yeah, goodbye everybody.